Hey guys, it's Saria. Welcome back to my channel and another day of Vlogmas. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm so excited about today's video. If you guys have been following along with my channel, especially just through last month, I posted an ear tutorial on how I made these cute little kind of snowy red truck inspired ears, and I used this really pretty soft velvet yarn that I found at Walmart, and I kind of teased you guys and said that I had another tutorial coming, and it's here. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how I made this really beautiful Mickey shaped, or I guess Minnie Mouse since it has a bow, Minnie Mouse shaped wreath for Christmas or winter, or just kind of the season really, because it's not really specifically Christmas. It is super easy to make. Most of these items are from Dollar Tree with the exception, I think, two. The yarn itself is from Walmart, and I believe I got it for $3.99, and you get a bunch. That's also why I'm trying to show you guys like multiple crafts you can do. And hint hint, I do have another tutorial coming out. So I have one more craft coming out for sure using this yarn, just to give you guys a big bang for your buck with it. And then, so make sure you're subscribed. So make sure you guys are subscribed and that you've rung the notification bell so that you are notified when the third craft comes out using this yarn, because if I'm gonna make you guys spend more than $1 on a supply, gosh darn it, we're gonna use it. Without any more chatting, let's jump into the tutorial.
So in order to make the Mickey wreath, we're going to need 3 wreath forms, 2 small ones that come in a pack together at Dollar Tree, and then one of these kind of wooden woven ones. I know that these are 2 different types of wreaths, but you won't be able to tell once we wrap them. To wrap them, we're going to be using this velvet white yarn that I got from Walmart. I believe it was $3.50 or $4 for the entire roll. And then I did originally use, what are those called, zip ties to hold the ears in place, but I'm going to show you guys a better way to attach the ears in a little bit. So really the first step is just taking your largest wreath and wrapping it all the way around using this white velvet yarn. You are going to see me kind of skip where the ears are and go back to it, but you can just wrap the entire wreath because that would probably be easier. And then once I have this part wrapped, I'm going to show you guys how to attach the ears. The best advice I have for this is to either do this in small sections, so like cut a large ball of yarn basically and wrap as much as you can and then do another one and keep going, or just be patient to put the yarn through the center of the wreath the whole time. So now you're going to see me skip that ear section and move into the center section between the ears, but again, I think this would be easier if you just wrapped the whole largest wreath at once and then moved on to the ears afterward. Now that that is all wrapped, I'm just tying a knot in the end of the yarn that I have, and then I'm actually going to cut off these zip ties and show you guys a better way to attach them. I just didn't like how they were kind of floppy, and I felt like the wreath wasn't going to lay flush against the door, so I'm actually taking the smaller wreath form and I'm going to bend it open a little bit. Right here you'll see me do that. So I'm literally just taking the wire and kind of bending it open so that it goes over the larger wreath and kind of joins it as opposed to just sitting behind it. Once I've done that, I'm just going to take the yarn and I'm going to tie a knot around the wreath just to hold it in place. This does not need to be perfect. I actually ended up tearing the yarn the first time that I tie it. You'll see that in about 3, 2, 1. And then I took a smaller strand and tied it around, and then I just hot glued down the end. And then I'm going to move on to wrapping the ears, and that's really what's going to secure this. You don't need a bunch of hot glue. You don't need to stress about it being wobbly, as long as when you wrap it, you keep that yarn pretty tight while you're wrapping it. By the way, I did end up buying these little silicone finger covers that you guys kept telling me to buy. I know that I've shown them on my channel before, I just never actually like pulled the trigger and bought them. I don't love them, not gonna lie. They're like to protect your finger from the hot glue, but I feel like I'd rather just touch the hot glue, which is, I'm saying that out loud and hearing how ridiculous that is, but it's fine. So I first wrapped the yarn a little bit around the base of the ear, and now I'm moving on to wrapping the actual ear. I am using hot glue just to keep the yarn in place because that transition from like the larger wreath onto the smaller wreath form, sometimes you can get kind of a weird gap there. So if you need to hot glue it down, it'll hold its shape, it'll hold its place a little bit better with just a dot of hot glue. And now I'm just going to continue wrapping the entire ear all the way down to the other side. Now that I have my first ear all done, I'm just going to put the yarn toward the back. I'm going to tie it in a knot on the back. And again, don't pull on this yarn too hard because it can like tear itself. But I'm just going to knot that and then snip off the excess, and we have one ear done. Now I'm going to repeat this process on the other side with the other smaller wreath form. So again, just kind of bending that wire to where it's going to fit around that larger wreath, placing it on top, and then using my yarn first to tie it in place, and then I will go ahead and wrap the entire ear. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put the yarn toward the back of the wreath, tie it in a knot, and then I'm actually going to hot glue this down just a little bit to cover up a little gap that I saw. Obviously this is the back of the wreath, so it doesn't really matter that much, but I do have a window on my door so you actually can see some of the back. And then I'm just going in and seeing if there's any spots that I kind of need to fill in. Maybe if I got like weird gaps or something like that. But overall, that is pretty much the premise for the base of the wreath. Now I'm going to give you guys a couple options. So Dollar Tree sells these little necklace lights, and they do light up. They're battery operated. I thought this would actually look really cute, and it fit really well on the bottom of the wreath. I thought maybe you could pick up two and use them to make your wreath a light up wreath. They also sell these little Let It Snow signs, which you could use behind your wreath. You could leave it as is, or you could cut the corners to make it more of a circle. I actually decided to pop off the little metal letters on this sign. And to do that, I just used a chisel that I had on hand. Now, I will tell you guys, Dollar Tree does also sell chisels that are a little bit wider and would probably do a slightly better job than the one that I had. But you just want to take your time and be careful because these letters will bend. They're kind of like aluminum. So they're, I don't want to say they're fragile, but they will bend if you kind of push them too hard. As far as getting it off the sign, it was relatively easy. Didn't take me that long. Now, for placement on the sign, before I do that, I'm actually going to make the bow. So I had this buffalo check ribbon on hand from Hobby Lobby. We actually used this on our tree, and I had some left over, so I cut 2 even strips. I would say that these are about 9 inches long, and then I'm going to just make a simple little ribbon bow from them. To make the bow, I'm just going to apply a thin line of hot glue on one end and then create a loop. The biggest thing with this is just making sure that the 2 loops you create are the same size, because one will be on the top and one will be on the bottom. Then I repeat this step with the other ribbon. And now that I have my 2 loops, I'm going to pinch them to create a bow. So you could just do one, but I just liked the fuller looking bow on this particular wreath. So I do just pinch them in the middle and then kind of put them together. This is just kind of playing with it and seeing what you like and how you want it to look. And then once I have that kind of pinched where I like it, I'm going to take a thin strip of the same ribbon and use that for the center part of my bow. I would suggest holding this hot glue in place, just letting it set, because if you don't hold it for long enough, it will pop open like mine just did. And then I accidentally got out of frame for this part, but to attach it, I just put some hot glue on the bottom of the center of the bow and firmly pressed it down onto the top of my wreath. I am going to add tails for this bow, but they're kind of a separate entity. which I will show in a minute. So next I kind of messed around with placing the words "Let It Snow" and how I was going to attach this. This did take some creativity, I guess, on my part, because I didn't want to just glue down the edges and hope that it held up in the wind and the cold. So instead what I did is I took some hot glue and I hot glued down some white pipe cleaners that I had on hand, just doing it to the edges of the word. So I did the S, the W, and then I did that curve on the L. And what I'm going to do is once these are hot glued, which by the way, you cannot get these pipe cleaners off. At one point I thought I was going to change my mind and I tried to take the pipe cleaner off and it would not come off. So they are very well attached with just a little bit of hot glue. So I'm just going to take that pipe cleaner and wrap it around the wreath. You can see the pipe cleaner. So after I did this, I actually took a little bit of yarn and glued the yarn around the pipe cleaner to hide the pipe cleaner. But honestly, it probably wouldn't bother most people just to leave the pipe cleaners as is. But next you're just going to see me wrapping this pipe cleaner around in order to secure the words, and then I also add one to the top of that L. And this is what the wreath looks like with just the pipe cleaner. In the video you cannot see it at all, but you could definitely see it up close, so I did decide to just cover it up using that same yarn. And all I did was apply a little bit of hot glue to the yarn, press it down into the wreath, and then just wrap it around once or twice and hot glue the back into place. And upon editing this, I realized I got out of frame for the bow. Again, I'm so sorry guys. All I did was cut a 10-inch strip of that same buffalo check ribbon and I just wrapped it around the back of the bow. I tacked it down with a dot of hot glue and then I cut the little ends of the ribbon to give it that little pointy shape on the bottom. I know that has a name, but I don't know what the name of it is. It's really simple. I mean, I feel like you can kind of tell just by looking at it what I did. But if you guys do need help, always just reach out to me through Instagram or the comments and I'll do my best to help. But that pretty much does it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I mean, this was super cost effective. You could never get a wreath of this size for such a cheap price if you just bought it as is. I'm so happy with how it came out. If you guys do have any questions or comments, leave them for me below and I'll see you guys in my next video, which is tomorrow. Happy Vlogmas!